Hey guys, it's the Political Kid, and today we're going to be talking about what if Al Gore won the 2000 election and how would that change American history, specifically with the War on Terror and what would happen after that. So, in our timeline, after all the recounts and all the suspicion of what the vote count was. The actual vote count in the state of Florida in 2000 election was ahead for George Bush by 500 votes. Now, I'm not going to say that, for this time, we're not just going to have the Supreme Court rule that there could be more recounts, which, honestly, if there were more recounts, if there were more recounts in this timeline, I still think George Bush might still win. However, it'd be way smaller margin. We just don't know because we don't have we don't have the resources to know for sure. But in this timeline, we're gonna have Al Gore just win the election outright by having Joe Lieberman go campaign more in Florida with the more Jewish minorities in Florida, because Joe Lieberman was the first Jewish candidate on a ticket, and we're going to have more of his moderate stances appeal to a lot of more Floridians. And in this timeline, we're going to have Al Gore win Florida. There would still be a lot of issues with and then instead of this timeline, George Bush would ask for a little bit more recounts. However, it wouldn't be to the degree of Al Gore. However, it would still be wondered, what if George Bush won in our timeline? So people would actually be wondering that instead of what we have of what if Al Gore won the 2000 election. So there would definitely be a few things different in our timeline. For number one, No Child Left Behind would probably never be passed, considering that is a definitely a Republican strong suit that they had in the early 2000s, and a lot of kids would get a better education, considering that Al Gore would probably increase funding for the Department of Education and just the pay of teachers. So that would help our children's education our timeline. However, the big event that would change the 2000s history would of course be 9/11, and Al Gore would still probably invade Afghanistan, and however he probably wouldn't invade Iraq because he was opposed to the Iraq War in this in our timeline, and Iraq only had the vaguest of things to do with 9/11, so I believe he wouldn't go into Iraq. However, he would definitely still oppose Saddam Hussein, and I could still see him getting deposed, Saddam Hussein getting deposed by his own people later in this new timeline. We're gonna also have Joe Lieberman be a little bit less moderate so the Democratic Party could be unified during the next few years. However, we would need Lieberman to be definitely more moderate during the 2004 election, as Lieberman and Al Gore did have a lot of differences, and I could see someone like John McCain running in 2004 against Al Gore. Now, Al Gore supporters would think that it could be a bigger win for Al Gore. However, because of the evangelical supporters, it would be it would almost be the same, except with maybe Florida going to McCain and a few other New Hampshire, Iowa, Nevada, New Mexico. Maybe Colorado would go to Al Gore. However, it would be even closer than the election in 2000. However, it would slightly go to Al Gore, so he would have a comfortable 2 terms in office. The Great Recession there would be a lot of intervention. However, the Great Recession would still happen, so the Democrats' popularity would still be at an all-time low. I could possibly see someone like Ron Paul trying to run in the Republican nomination in 2008, considering that by this time a lot of people would not want to be interventionists, so they would probably want to get out of Afghanistan more, considering that the job was almost done. And since Osama bin Laden would probably be hunted down earlier in our timeline, there wouldn't be that issue of like a terrorist still around. So I believe that Ron Paul would win the Republican nomination. I could definitely see like the 2008 Democratic primaries could be like very contested, with more liberals going with Barack Obama, more moderate liberals going with Hillary Clinton, and more just centrists going with Joe Lieberman. However, I could see Hillary Clinton dropping out and supporting Joe Lieberman, and eventually, because of Joe Lieberman's popularity with moderates, I could see him beating out Obama. However, to keep a lot of liberals on check on the ticket, I could see I could see Joe Lieberman picking Barack Obama as his VP. So in this timeline, I do believe that Ron Paul would probably win the election, considering that the Democrats would be less popular than in our timeline in 2008, and there wouldn't be as much as a hope and change aspect for the Democratic Party. So that would definitely be an issue, and the Republicans would probably get us out of the Great Recession. There wouldn't be a lot of intervention, and there would be less regulations on businesses, so it would be kind of iffy. It would definitely The Great Recession would still have a lot of effects going into 2012 than it did had in our own timeline, but I could still see Ron Paul winning a second term because of getting out of the Great Recession and probably getting out of Afghanistan. And then in 2016, it could be a wild card. I could see Hillary Clinton running, or Barack Obama running, and I could see Barack Obama winning in 2016, and Barack Obama winning in 2020. And then in 2024, it doesn't really, I don't really know who would win, but if I had to guess, it would be someone like maybe Marco Rubio, Ron DeSantis, or Nikki Haley. But to go back to the point of Al Gore running the 2000 election, the main change would be there would be a weaker response to 9/11. However, we wouldn't be spending trillions of dollars fighting in Iraq, and we'd just focus our goals on hunting down terrorism in the Middle East. So, in our timeline, a lot of people would wonder what if George Bush was president, and it's just the cycle of we always wonder what would happen if other presidents won, because every presidential election counts. So just in the future, you always want to vote, even if you don't like either party. You should always vote. Even like you should maybe even vote for a third party if you don't like the two major parties. But you should always vote, because every presidential election matters, and it does even if your candidate that you do vote for loses, there's always next time, and that's what politics is, and there's always the midterms. So I hope you all have a good day, and happy February.